This video is called When Bob Goes to Court, or If Bob Goes to Court for Anything. What do you get? Well, I don't want a lawyer. I might silence my lawyer or fire my lawyer, and I'm going to speak reality. Do I respect the court? Yeah, do I somewhat? Do I respect their intellectualism and how they don't really get the facts out, or they don't get real testimony and learn a person's character, how they think, and all that kind of stuff? No, I don't respect that. I don't respect silence in the court when you want to speak, when the uh, witness wants to speak for themselves, or a suspect or a defendant wants to speak for themselves and tell what they saw or what they know, whether they're innocent or guilty, especially if they're innocent, if they're a suspect who is innocent, and or a defendant who is innocent. Also, to if it's a case where there was an accidental thing that happened or something, they need to be able to explain that from their perspective, and um, all those kind of things. So in a court, if Bob goes to court for something, he wants to tell what he saw, and he wants to tell his perspective and view. Doesn't matter what the case is. I want to challenge the court system while I'm there and say, look, about the fact that I'm not allowed to speak. You're going to say I can't speak? Why am I wasting my time here? Well, let me go. Why don't I leave? Why are you going to take my time for me to have me here if I'm not allowed to speak? Adios. I'll just stop right there and keep this kind of, a little more humorous from that standpoint. But I mean, there's stuff I don't respect about the court intellectually. And in the area of being honest, you're hiding honesty. You're hiding reality. There's a lot of cofactors that happen in this world. I understand, lawyer, you're dragging out court cases for money's sake. For the lawyers. Lawyers are doing that. Lawyers. And they're the ones that bring up this stuff. Oh, silence. I object. And then the judge says, okay, you can't say that. They're offended by it. They object. What is that, a Democrat lawyer? They're offended by everything that you say. You know what? So, I mean, put all the evidence out there. I know if something's an obvious lie, I don't know how it's obvious. Sometimes there's contradictions or two points of view. At a car wreck, people see different things. People panic and don't see what really happened. Some people are able to keep their cool and see what happened and explain what happened. But it's, I'll just say, I'll end on this. If I can't speak, what am I doing here for? Why you got me here? Let me speak my piece and get out. Let me say what I saw and let me go. All right. So, in some cases, if you speak on what you saw, then that puts you in danger too to speak on it because that might implicate someone, but somebody else that might be guilty. Well, so what? My time is valuable. If they're guilty, they're guilty. And if they're not, they're not. That's even more important. You don't want to put the unguilty people in somewhere. But sometimes things happen because we have bad laws. People panic and react wrong to things because something's against the law that shouldn't be such a big deal, or some stuff like that. That I like to address that stuff in court and bring it to the attention of the justice system while I'm there, and that can happen just by talking real life stuff and facts of a case that can expose problems with the system. So you allow people to speak when they want to speak, and uh, when it's their perspective, and it's not necessarily a matter of truth or lie, but they're giving their perspective. Because if they're telling a lie, you don't want to let them speak, or you want to be able to call out the lie if you find out there's a lie and contradiction. But there's a lot of stuff that are not contradictions, but are possibilities that somebody else didn't see, or you can't prove it, but that's what you saw. But there is something in that sentence. You say, this is my experience, and It's not just hearsay. It's my experience, my perspective, and I did this step, this step, this step, and this one step here is provable. All right. So those other two I can't prove, but that's where my mindset was and why I'd made this decision. That usually happens in a case where somebody is trying to make good decisions, but in a bad situation, and it shows, and it's pretty usually easy to tell if they're allowed to explain stuff like that. Well, you allow people to do that kind of thing, and it exposes problems with the system, the justice system, the court system. And we have a lot of problems with our court system today. Things get dragged out way too long. We have problems with our justice system today. We should put people in jail for life for stealing. Life for stealing, but they get out the first day if they pay back their victim. There are people who will say, I'm not paying them back. I'm not paying them back. They'd stand. There's some who will stay in for life and not pay back their victim. This is improvable, 100% proven situations where they were robbed by this person. All right. So there are people who will stay there for a year and then they'll finally say, okay, I'll pay him back. Maybe not with a good heart at that point, or maybe they finally realize that's the right thing to do. But that's something we can fix real easy in our justice system. I don't know how easy you can fix it, but it should be easy because it's the problem. When people steal cars, the thief never pays back the car. Insurance pays for it in a full coverage situation. The thief should be paying back the insurance company, right? At least part. So they're not paying anything. And so that would help get our insurance companies out of debt. That would fix a whole lot of stuff. So it would help people to realize, hey, it's wrong to steal from people. We don't even think it's wrong to steal. That's a real crime. Me drinking coffee instead of tea for my caffeine is not a crime. You might think it's a crime. But it's not a crime. A crime is something you do against somebody else. All right. You could call it a crime because caffeine is bad for your body, especially if you do too much. It's a crime against your own body. But it's not a crime is something we do against other people for the most part. And if you do crimes against your body that causes you to be irresponsible and it affects other people, that can be considered a crime. But you're getting nitpicky. We when it comes to patrolling things, we need to pick more on direct crimes. And sometimes medicine does help somebody be more responsible. If they're driving at night, and I've had people get mad about this, that I say this, but if they're driving at 2 o'clock in the morning, fall asleep at the wheel, and they decide to use caffeine to stay awake, that's a good thing to do. Now, it's better if you could pull over and sleep, and they're saying you shouldn't do it. You should be sleeping somewhere. Uh, you can't always, come on, people. You can't always do that. Some people have to drive. They have to get somewhere. But yes, it's better if you can sleep somewhere, pull off and sleep somewhere, than to take caffeine. But if you can't, you're better off using caffeine than falling asleep at the wheel and hurting people in the car or somebody else, hurting yourself and hurting your car. If that doesn't make sense, I don't know what does. If you have insomnia, you're better off taking something natural that helps you sleep. That's first order, So court. So Bob goes to court. What's Bob going to do? He's not going to want to do what his lawyer says and stay silent. He's going to want to speak his perspective and give a real picture of stuff that went on and tell the truth. Even if somebody did Bobby wrong, he's going to say, well, they have some good traits. They were nice about this and nice about that, but then they just snapped and did this. There's something like that were the case or whatever. I'm not. I want to know. I want the whole picture, the whole setting. And so you're not demonizing people and giving them 200 years when it's not realistic, and they're only going to live 100 years at the most, probably, and or 80 years. So there's just not. Let's be realistic. That's a messed up thing in court to give somebody 300 years and all that kind of stuff. Just give them what you give them. I mean, anyway. So I won't get into all that, but I'm a truth seeker since Chaser Bob, and all that kind of stuff. I don't have time to keep going. I'm sweating like a. Yeah, I'm gonna change. Okay, you can't see me sweating as much on this side, so maybe I'll keep talking. No, I'll try to end at 10 minutes. But if Bob goes to court, I'm challenging the courts, just like I disagree with the drug rehab places. Maybe it's because our drug cartel runs the courts halfway nowadays. Maybe that's why they're so messed up. Anyway, I shall leave.